Currently, Ethereum is king in the smart contract crypto space. And for good reason. Its TVL, the total value secured by the network, is around 10 times that of its nearest competitor. But as many of you know, the popularity of Ethereum has come with insane transaction fees. Performing a swap on Uniswap right now would cost you over $60. Compared to centralized exchanges like Coinbase, that is just way too expensive. These high fees have kicked off a great migration. Users are packing up their bags and searching for greener pastures and cheaper transactions. And many of them are finding a home in Ethereum Layer 2s, more scalable networks built on top of the Ethereum blockchain. Not only are users migrating to L2 from L1 or Ethereum, but the vast majority of new users coming into the Ethereum ecosystem are being directly onboarded via L2s. Many people, including myself, believe that L2s will be the place where the majority of humans in the world have their first on-chain crypto experience. As the next 1 billion people in the world begin interacting with smart contracts, an insane amount of value is available to those who are able to capture this group. There's currently no clear winner in the L2 space, and the various L2 networks are fighting tooth and nail to establish themselves as the dominant player. Because these chains operate on network effects, it's very possible that the winning L2 coming out of the year 2022 will be the dominant crypto network for years to come and could eventually be worth trillions with a T. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the Ethereum L2 landscape as it stands today, focusing on the 4 leading networks. We're going to take a look at the position they're in now and how likely they are to actually become the leading L2 in the future. Before we get into the specific protocols, it's important to understand the 3 main categories that these L2s fall into based on their underlying technology. These categories are Optimistic Rollups, ZK Rollups, and Sidechains. Both of the Rollups categories work by rolling up multiple transactions on their networks, batching them, and then updating the results of that batch of transactions to the Ethereum blockchain. Optimistic rollups work by assuming all transactions are valid and submitting the results to Ethereum. There is then a dispute period of about 1 week where anyone can check the validity of the transaction batch. This method is very scalable, but comes with some drawbacks. The main drawback is that this dispute period means that it can take up to a week to withdraw from an optimistic rollup chain. Optimistic rollups have the advantage that they are for the most part EVM compatible, which means that decentralized applications built for Ethereum can be deployed without any extra work to these optimistic rollup networks. ZK rollups, or zero knowledge rollups, work by submitting a cryptographic proof to the main chain. This cryptographic proof is a more technologically complicated way of ensuring that the transactions are valid and doesn't require a dispute period. This is great for users because they don't have the same withdrawal limitations that optimistic rollups do. That said, there are some cons. The major one being that ZK rollups are not fully EVM compatible yet. Finally, the black sheep of the bunch are sidechains. Sidechains are not rollups and have entirely their own validation and security. It's basically an entire blockchain complete with its own validator sets and economic incentives. The benefit is that the scalability of these sidechains can be very large, even if Ethereum itself is slow, but they don't offer nearly the same security guarantees as rollups. Many Ethereum purists believe that the term L2s should not even encompass sidechains, due to the fact that these sidechains do not have the same security guarantees as Ethereum. So let's look at the gladiators in this L2 arena. First up, we have Polygon. Polygon, originally called Matic Network, was launched in May of 2020. They are a sidechain with an independent consensus model from Ethereum, and they are fully EVM compatible. Their token, Matic, is used to pay for transaction fees on the network and has an $11 billion market cap today. Being a sidechain, Polygon has the advantage of having the cheapest transaction fees when compared to other major L2s. This may be the reason that, of all the major L2s, Polygon has had the most traction to date. According to DeFi Llama, they have around $5 billion in total value locked. They've also had many major applications launch on the network, including Aave, Uniswap, Curve, and even OpenSea. Also interesting is that Polygon has probably gotten the most mainstream adoption of any L2, mostly because of NFTs. Adidas, Prada, Macy's, and other brands have used Polygon as their network of choice to launch NFT projects. Low fees may be one reason, but it could also be because Polygon has the ability to brand itself as a green alternative, because their proof of stake model does not rely on Ethereum's proof of work model. Polygon is in the lead right now, but can they maintain this? The co-founder of Reddit, Alexis Ohanian, thinks so. He recently launched a $200 million fund to invest in the Polygon ecosystem. Polygon themselves are putting their market cap to work and have launched a $100 million fund for NFT gaming on its network. That all said, they have many challenges coming up in the future to their L2 dominance. They have been losing market share as other rollups have launched and gotten more traction. As these rollups get more users, and after Ethereum switches to the proof of stake model, the advantage that Polygon has in transaction fees will be much less pronounced. One bright spot for Polygon is that the network seems to have recognized all of these coming challenges and recently acquired a ZK rollup startup called Hermez. This may help them compete with these rollup-based chains in the future. Next up, we have Optimism. Optimism is the aptly named inventor of Optimistic Rollups and just completed their full launch last December. Before that, only whitelisted developers could deploy smart contracts, but the network is now open for any developer to deploy. Optimism is EVM compatible for 99% of applications. They currently do not have a native token like Polygon, and instead they use Ether to pay transaction fees. Their fees currently sit at the high end of L2s, but are likely to come down as they get more users. Optimism has hovered around 500 million in total value locked, but it's likely that we'll see these numbers grow in the future. As far as applications, Optimism has a few of the big ones, but lags well behind Polygon in this regard. Overall, Optimism sits a little behind some of the other L2s, but don't count them out yet. They've spent the majority of their time prepping for the open launch of their network and much less time marketing and courting developers. They will most likely ramp up their efforts to court developers and users during the next few months, and they're definitely one to watch. So now on to Arbitrum. Arbitrum is currently the biggest rollup-based L2 and the biggest competitor to Polygon's dominance. It also uses Optimistic Rollup technology and actually started off as a fork of Optimism. Since then, they have differentiated themselves from Optimism by doing some minor changes in the code to the dispute process. Like Optimism, they use Ether for gas fees and do not have their own native token. Arbitrum's total value locked sits at around $2.5 billion today. They have a huge number of the biggest decentralized applications deployed on their network. There has even been some speculation that OpenSea is likely to add Arbitrum as its next supported network, which could drive even more adoption. Many people prefer the idea of rollups over a sidechain like Polygon, especially for financial applications. For this reason, I believe that Arbitrum is really the L2 to beat at this moment. That said, its transaction fees are still much higher than Polygon, so some applications like gaming may not be feasible until those fees come down. Finally, we have ZK Sync. ZK Sync is a ZK rollup based L2. They are different from all the other L2s mentioned because currently they are not generally EVM compatible. This means that many applications which are being deployed on Optimistic Rollups and on Polygon cannot easily be deployed to ZK Sync. That said, there is a huge research and engineering push to create a generalized EVM compatible compiler for ZK Sync. They recently released an alpha version of this ZK EVM, and they use it to create and deploy a functional version of Uniswap v2. ZK Sync currently offers cheaper transaction fees than the Optimistic-based rollups. Despite this, they only have a modest $65 million in total value locked. One interesting thing about ZK Sync is that they have confirmed that they are planning on being community owned, which can be interpreted as them planning on launching a token. This community ownership, along with the future launch of full EVM compatibility, could cause 2022 to be a huge year for ZK Sync. So, to summarize, it's still anyone's game, but the prize for winning is massive, and we are going to see a lot of changes happening in 2022. If you learned something while watching this video, I'd love if you could drop a like for the YouTube algorithm. If you want to learn more about decentralized finance and crypto, hit subscribe.